Hi, folks. Jonathan Gallo here with Vandeventer Black's Cannabis Connection. Our latest podcast today is going to talk about some of the recent bills pending in the Virginia General Assembly to legalize psychedelic or magic mushrooms. So, after legalizing simple possession of marijuana less than a year ago, Virginia is now seeking to become the next state behind Oregon to decriminalize the possession of psilocybin or psilocyn, which is commonly known as psychedelic or magic mushrooms. Now, Oregon was the first state to do this. They did it at the end of last year with two ballot measures, Ballot Measure 109 and Ballot Measure 110. Now, Ballot Measure 109 created a program for administering psilocybin products, such as psilocybin producing mushrooms and fungi, to individuals aged 21 years and older. The Oregon Health Authority is going to be responsible for establishing the program and creating regulations, and it has a 2 year period to develop the program. Under the program, clients would be allowed to purchase, possess, and consume psilocybin at a service center and under the supervision of a service facilitator after undergoing a preparation session. Now, Oregon's ballot measure 110 decriminalized certain controlled substances, and specifically, it reclassified personal non commercial drug possession offenses, making possession of a controlled substance in Schedules 1 through 4, such as heroin, cocaine, and methamphetamines, reclassified from a Class A misdemeanor to a Class E violation, resulting in a $100 fine or a completed health assessment. It also established the Drug Treatment and Recovery Services Fund to address treatment for drug use disorder. Now, the recent legislation introduced in Virginia this week, well, actually last week, there were similar bills introduced both in the Senate and the House. The bill introduced in the Senate by Senators Hashmi and Boysko, and I apologize if I pronounced any of the legislators' names. It basically states that any person aged 21 years of age or older who violates the Controlled Drug Act with respect to psilocybin or psilocin shall be punished by a civil penalty of no more than $100. Presently, the possession of that substance by a person over 21 is a Class 5 felony punishable by up to 10 years in prison. A similar bill introduced into the Virginia House of Delegates by Delegate Adams would also decriminalize the possession of peyote, and that's a cactus that contains the psychedelic compound mescaline, as well as ibogaine, an alkaloid substance found in a native African shrub called Tabernath iboga that also has hallucinogenic properties. Now, this legislation follows a slow but growing movement toward decriminalizing certain drugs based on studies of their use in certain medical applications. For example, according to the results of a recent study, psilocybin was found to be an effective therapy for treatment resistant depression, and ibogaine has been used to treat opioid and other addictions. However, these hallucinogens are still considered illegal and they're federally classified as Schedule 1 drugs, similar to heroin and LSD, under the Federal Controlled Substances Act. Pursuant to the Controlled Substances Act, Schedule 1 substances have a high potential for abuse, no currently accepted medical use and treatment in the United States, and a lack of accepted safety for use under medical supervision. However, non hallucinogenic versions of some of these drugs are being developed. Now, what effect, if any, Virginia's recent changes in leadership may have on this legislation remain unknown. But it does demonstrate that Virginia appears to be one of the states at the forefront of new and upcoming drug related legislation. Now, as I said at the beginning of this podcast, we took a little bit of a detour to talk about different drug legislation. However, in an upcoming podcast, I'm going to discuss some of the recent developments in Virginia's cannabis legislation. There are a number of bills in the 2022 General Assembly session this year that address the cannabis laws that were passed last year in Virginia. So stay tuned for that particular podcast. And we're going to tease out those laws and discuss what their potential effects could be on last year's cannabis legislation. As always, if you have any questions about this or other pending drug legislation, please stay tuned to the Cannabis Connection or contact the attorneys at Van Deventer Black because we'll be following this and similar legislation closely.